guys, it's Beltrami from Roselle Properties, and it is Tidbit Tuesday. And this Tuesday, I'm sitting down with Amber Piester with Old Republic Title, and we're going to answer some questions that have been asked of me from my buyers. And also, I just think they're great questions to be asked of a title company so that you kind of understand why we use a title company in the buying process of a new home and the importance of the title company. Amber and I have been working together for 9 years. She's been in the industry for a long time. She'll tell you a little bit about herself, and then we'll get into the depths of the video of asking these questions, and we hope that we can answer a lot of your questions. So without further ado, Amber.
Hi, my name's Amber Piester. I've been in the title business for 29 years.
Okay.
I started when I was 12.
Yes, exactly. Right, because I'm 29.
But anyway, I've enjoyed it. I started out in Denver, Colorado. And then since we've moved to Texas, I've obviously been doing it as well.
Okay. And so how long have you been with Old Republic?
Let's see, for a year now.
Okay,
yeah,
great. So I really thought that it would be great to sit down together, and I so appreciate you giving me part of your time today because I know you're very busy, and ask these questions and have you answer them. And I'm sure I'm going to learn something as well, because sometimes we just take it for granted. Okay, let's send the paperwork to title, but not understand exactly everything that goes on. And I think it's really important for buyers to understand that the buying transaction is not just between the buyer and the seller. There's actually a lot of third-party people that touch the contract, and they're the ones that help us get to the final closing table. And title is, I feel, is one of the most important that we should really, besides the lender, we should understand what's going on.
Sure.
Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
It's a big part of it.
So great. So what's the purpose of the title company in the buying transaction?
So the reason why people use title companies is because, first of all, especially if there's a loan involved on your buyer's side,
right.
Most of us don't have the luxury of paying cash.
Correct.
So the lenders are going to require a policy. They want to make sure that someone's done a search of the property, that it's, that when they're giving money on it, that they're doing a sound investment in the property. So one of the things we do, obviously, one of our main jobs is to search the title, make sure that that title looks good, that it's acceptable for your purchasers or sellers, either side that you're on.
Right.
And work on making sure that we have all the requirements in before you close.
Okay. So you're kind of the one that kind of brings all the paperwork together so that everybody, when we come to the closing table, everything is not there. We're not having to go to all these different entities.
Right.
It's one stop, one shop kind of thing.
Yes, we are we're the last stop before the house gets purchased.
Perfect. Awesome. And so what's the difference between title underwriter and a lender's underwriter?
So that just like the lender has an underwriter, which the buyers are always well aware of when they're going through underwriting.
Right. We all know that.
The lenders are concerned with risk. The underwriter's looking at the risk in the situation, in the situation, and making sure that it's acceptable for the lender. We have the same thing on the title side, since we're a separate entity from the lender. And I know it gets confusing for a lot of the buyers because you do get a lot of emails, and they don't know if they're responding to a lender, they don't know if they're responding to a title person. It's very confusing, but they are two separate entities in the transaction. So the lender's underwriter is worrying about what the lender needs to be worried about, and the title's underwriter, we're looking at what would affect us for title for issuing the policies. And so they're two separate things. Sometimes they have the same goal, but sometimes they are not the same goal. So that's why it's important for the parties to understand that they are two separate entities.
Okay. And so when you just said title policy, is a title policy and title insurance the same thing?
Yes, it is. So during the closing process, you'll get paperwork from us, and it shows what we've pulled so far in the property, the initial search. It's our commitment. And that's for you to review, and you take a peek at that and say, okay, this is what's against it, this is what it has. Are there deed restrictions? Do you have a homeowners association? Where are the utility easements? That kind of thing. What are the liens the seller has? So those are the kind of things that search will pull up. And so the commitment, that's the commitment to insure. It's not the actual policy yet. So the policies don't get issued until you've actually closed. The recordings are done and all those requirements are met. That's when the policy gets issued.
And so those title commitments, they can actually show liens against the seller and the buyer, correct?
We search the names of the entities. So that's why it's really important for the names to be as correct as possible when the contracts are written.
Because that's sometimes I've had buyers say to me, why are they showing the liens against me considering that this is the title policy for the house,
Mhm.
but I have to let them know that everybody's being checked in
Yes,
this,
yes.
and then exactly that. Make sure the names are right. Make sure
Mhm.
your spellings are correct.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, great. So when you say acceptable title, what does that mean?
So after we do our title search, we send those out by email to the clients, and then they have time to review them.
Okay.
So what you're looking for are, there's certain things that are very normal. It's normal to have utility easements. It's normal to have homeowners associations, deeds restrictions.
Right.
There's things that are definitely normal. Then there's other things that you might want to be more concerned about. Pipelines.
Right.
Things going through the property. If you see a lot of liens against a seller, that's concerning too, because you've
Okay.
entered into a contract with them. They have a bunch of liens. Are they going to be able to close? Are
Right.
they overextended? Do they have to bring money to closing? Those are the kind of
Okay.
things that you're looking for.
Because those liens have to be cleared up
They have
before we
to.
can go to closing.
They have to.
Okay.
So if you see things like IRS liens, judgments, all of those things, estates, if your
Mhm.
seller's deceased, all of those things are potential roadblocks that can delay or even stop the closing if they're
Okay.
not being able to be addressed.
Okay. And so I think that's a really good point too, to let sellers know that if you know you have a lien against the house, you really need to let your agent know,
Mhm.
because that could delay a 30-day closing.
Sure.
We had an incident, you and I, when we
Mhm.
worked with the estate with the death in a foreign
Mhm.
country, and
Right.
remember, it took forever, but
Sure.
we got it done, but it took forever.
It definitely takes longer
Yeah.
when you're dealing with things out of your control. Once
Right.
it goes to an estate or probate.
Right. And
There's
sometimes
definitely
the
delays.
buyers don't know that
Of course.
until they get into it. So they need to
Mhm.
understand that we're not trying to delay this process because we're trying to delay it to be facetious. It's being delayed because
For valid reasons.
For valid reasons.
Mhm.
And you as the third party, I as the agent representing the seller have no control over that. I can't make it go faster. I can't make it go slower. It's just, this is what happens,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Okay, great. So is there anything a seller should do or worry about before they put their house in the market? We kind of just talked about a little bit of
Yeah.
that, but is there anything else?
There's a few things that we run into that are pretty common things that happen with some sellers
Okay.
specifically here in Texas. So Texas, we're one of the states in the U.S. that are community property states.
Mhm.
And what that means is if you're a married person, that means that spouse needs to be signing off on paperwork. It doesn't matter if when you bought the house you were single, if you're selling it and you're married, or if you've been divorced, we've got to deal with that spouse.
Okay.
And so what we run into on a consistent basis, unfortunately, is a lot of people that either don't disclose to their agent or they don't want to disclose that they're married or divorced, and so
in the process of getting divorced.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And as an agent, that is something that you need to be concerned about and really be asking those questions on the listing, because your contract can be considered invalid if you don't have all the parties that are entitled signing off on the contract.
Exactly.
So if you have just a man and his wife's not signing, she can come back and say, hey, I never agreed to that, and that's half my house. So it's really important for things like that to check about marital statuses, to make sure that the people are still alive. I know that sounds morbid, but especially you're dealing with elderly couples. You see the tax, a really easy check is looking at the tax rolls.
Right.
It's not always accurate, but it's a good start.
Right.
If you're noticing two names on title and you're only dealing with one person, you need to be asking
Why?
those sometimes awkward questions
Right.
on where the other person is.
Right.
And it's even more complicated is if they're still alive, but maybe they have Alzheimer's, or maybe they're in a medical facility.
Mhm.
Then there's a lot more complications you have to get involved with on that.
Right. Exactly. And even on the agent side, once that becomes an issue, then it's a whole horse
Another
of
ball of
different-
wax.
Yeah, it really is.
It is.
So yeah, that's another video.
Uh-huh.
Are title fees set, or are they negotiable like a real estate agent's
That's an
commission?
excellent question, because I have worked in different states. And here in Texas, the title fees are set. We are promulgated, which means it's a
Okay.
regulated state. That means that no matter where you close in Texas, you have pay the exact same rates to the title company.
Okay, awesome.
Now, the one thing that you will see change from time to time are some of the closing fees, but because of competition, those are all pretty close.
Okay.
So really, as far as negotiating title fees, it's just you're not able to do it, because
Right.
we can't change the fees. We're not able to.
Okay.
Again, that's regulated by Texas. So everybody pays the same rate.
Okay.
It's basically to keep it fair.
Right.
But yeah, the only differences, like I said, are on the closing fees, and even those are pretty pretty small
So
differences.
it's really important also to have a good title company.
It really is.
You're paying the same fee, so you might as well do your due diligence and really get a good title company.
Yeah, use a team that you're familiar with.
Exactly.
Use people that have experience, people that know what they're doing, and honestly, use a reputable company.
Yeah. And as I said to you before, Amber and I have been working together for 9 years, and she does all my transactions, and that's the reason why, is I know if there's an issue, she's going to come to me and tell me way beforehand, hey Dawn, we have an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And she is also, as a new agent, when I was a new agent, she helped me and educated me on things that I did not know, and that's why her and I have this relationship. That, sorry, this is who I'm using, because I know she's going to get the job done, and if there are any mistakes or problems, she's going to let me know about it way before it becomes an issue. And that's really important.
It is.
I really think. Yeah,
it really is. You truly are teams when you go to close.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so one question I think is really important, especially now in this day and age, between wire fraud is a huge issue right now.
Oh, it's horrible.
Huge issue.
Mm-hmm.
I tell my buyers, you're going to sign that wire fraud addendum like 4 times probably in this whole process. They do it with me, they do it with you, they do it with my broker, like everybody's having them sign it. So is the money that the buyers give in escrow, is that safe here, or what do you do with that money? Where does it go?
So since we're a fiduciary company, that means that we're responsible for dealing with people's money.
Right.
So we're highly regulated and licensed, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But yes, it's definitely safe. All title companies, to get your license, to keep your license, you have to be backed. You have to have funds.
Okay.
But yes, when your funds get here, they are safe. Each earnest money has its own account, so every file goes into its own account.
Okay.
So when you send in earnest money, that sits in its own separate account at our bank, and it's not touched until we're directed what to do with it.
Okay.
So it just sits there until you're ready to spend
Is
it.
interest accumulated?
No.
That's always a question.
It is.
Am I going to get interest with that too?
I understand it, but it never makes any sense unless you have huge commercial deals.
Huge.
Because, well, I'm sure y'all aware of what the banks pay out on interest rates. I think it's like a 100th of a percent of interest.
Exactly.
So the fee to set up an interest-bearing account is like $75. You would never recoup the interest.
Yeah.
So anyway, just and literally, unless you have millions in that account, you're not going to make interest.
Exactly.
So
I have people ask me that.
Yeah.
Am I going to get interest? No, you're not going to get interest.
You can't blame them for trying.
Yeah. And wire fraud truly is a huge problem. Talk about that a little bit.
Okay,
What's happening?
I think people are really nonchalant about it, and I'm actually always amazed that they are. So it is a huge issue, and it has been for several years. And I see it, I literally see it, and I see attempts almost daily.
Wow.
It is something that is very prevalent. I have buyers that they'll send me an email and they'll say, did you send this to me? And I said, absolutely not. I'm not sure who sent that to you, but that's not me. Look at the address, look at the,
Exactly.
So it's still literally happening on a daily basis.
It is.
So it's something that you have to be diligent about.
Yep.
I know when I get instructions, I want them in person. So that's why I won't even take wire instructions unless someone's literally sitting in front of me. So the seller at the closing table,
Right.
or if the seller's with a notary that's verified their ID and they know it's them.
Right.
That's literally the only way I'll take wire instructions.
Yeah.
I will not take anything over the phone. I won't take anything online, no emails. And you have to assume that anything that you get as far as instructions is fraudulent.
Right. Exactly.
You really do.
You really do. I literally, every buyer, I scare the crap out of them.
Which
I'm
is
sorry,
good.
I do. And I tell them, you do not wire anything unless you ask me.
Yes.
And because the reason why I say that is because I'm going to call you
Right.
and say, did you send this?
Uh-huh.
Because if you didn't, we're not wiring anything.
No.
And I tell my clients, do not wire anything
Right.
unless you've asked me. Because you know my number is right.
Right.
That at least we know the starting point, and then I can call you and ask.
Exactly.
Because unfortunately, I hear it all the time too.
And it's very scary. They'll send emails, the fraudsters will send emails, very, they sound very official. They've copied and pasted logos.
Your logo, everything.
And they try things like you'll get, you'll have a discount if you send your funds in early. I mean, they have tried it all. And unfortunately, people do fall for that. We can take our funds at closing via cashier's check. So honestly, that's the safest thing. You're going to your bank, right, at day before closing or whatever, getting a check from your bank, cashier's check from your bank, payable to Old Republic, and then you can just come to closing with that. You can completely avoid the wire issue altogether.
Exactly.
It's a little bit more of a pain, but it's definitely safer.
Absolutely.
I know it's definitely not the most technical thing to do, but unfortunately there are some people that aren't able to do that. They have banks out of state,
right, or
their bank is only online, and that's fine, but then just be extremely diligent if that's the case.
Yes, because the one thing that you need to understand is when that money is lost, no one is responsible to give it back to you. No. That money is lost.
What people don't understand is those wire instructions, that's you giving your bank instructions. Exactly. You are literally telling your bank, this is where I want you to send funds. So your bank doesn't have any repercussions because they've done exactly what you've told them to do.
Right.
We don't have any repercussions because we're not the ones that sent it. Right. It was done fraudulently. Yep. Again, it's a very horrible situation.
Horrible.
So really the smartest thing is not to send a wire if you can avoid it at all right. costs, but if you have to, then just be extremely careful.
And that's why us as agents and as our brokers are required to have you sign that wire fraud addendum so that if you lose this money, we're not responsible because we've already told you do not wire your funds. Yeah. So I agree with Amber. If you can do a cashier's check, that's the safest way. If you can't, then you definitely want to make sure that your agent, you're calling me, you're getting approval, and then you're sending
do things like I do. There are times where I have to I just have to get instructions via online or through fax or whatever. So there's a few things that I do. I literally just Google the name of the company. I go to their direct website. Mm-hmm. I call a phone number that's on their website. Mm-hmm. I talk to a person. Mm-hmm. We do that for our wires for the payoffs because we don't even know if those have been,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
everybody has to be
very careful.
Very, very careful.
So there's things that you can do to check. But again, that's still not a fail-safe. So right. just be very, very careful when wiring funds.
Exactly. We cannot say it enough.
I know. Yeah.
So what has been your most challenging title search and how did you handle it?
Well, in 30 years, there's been quite a few. But most recently, we had it's always the really small land deals, the $20,000 deals. We had a land deal that came in, and it was owned by an estate. All the people that were entitled were deceased. And in that particular case, here in Texas, we have things called heirship affidavits where the heirs start filling out information about the estate. And it was your proverbial can of worms. Every time they filled out a form, we ran into another estate and ran into another estate because all of the people were very old. So a lot of people were dead in the family. So we literally had a point where we were dealing with 10 different estates. It got to 10. And then we finally said, you know what? The more we dig, the more we run into stuff. So
it was a small land deal.
And it was this tiny little, land deal.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that was one of the cases where we actually weren't even able to insure. We had to call the clients and say, I'm sorry, we can't insure this transaction. So I don't know if they ever found a title company that could insure that. And that's again explaining why it's so important to have title insurance, because if they find a sucker out there that'll buy that property, they're going to have a hard time selling it because they're going to keep running into those same issues.
Exactly.
So there's definitely difficult ones that we run into. The vast majority of those difficult ones are estates. It's just difficult to locate people.
Right. Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and sometimes we don't think that there are some title policies that cannot be issued.
Sometimes you just can't.
You just can't do it. Yeah. Fortunately, we have not run into that problem.
No. If you do, just cancel the contract.
I'm done.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
Exactly. So, what's a reason that a claim would go against the title policy?
Okay, so that's actually a good question. Where I see it most often is because I not with my builders, but I've worked with builders. Is let's say that you had your house built by a custom builder. Let's say you bought a lot, some land, and then you had a builder build on it, and then you went to close, and some of the mechanics weren't paid. Some of the contractors weren't paid. Right. So they filed what's called a mechanics lien. So, then it's like, when did you close? Did you buy the property from the builder? Did the builder sign an all bills paid affidavit? All those little things can cause title claims.
Okay.
Because when the contractors aren't paid, they're like, okay, who can I
go after?
Who can I go after?
Right.
So things like that.
Okay.
Material men not paid. Even when you go buy something from, a big builder, like a big, postage stamp builder that builds 300, buildings in a property.
Right.
I'm always amazed that people are like, oh, it's a new build, I don't need title insurance. I'm like, oh my gosh, those are the ones who need it more than anything.
Right.
Because they just paid like 400 people off on the property who you want to make sure that they just, got their payment.
Everybody has.
I know, I'm always amazed at that. Anyway. So yeah, more particular, that's one of the big ones. Obviously, is you want to make sure that all those people that did work on that house got paid for that. You also run into, just like we were talking about with the ex-wife,
right? Yeah.
You have, unfortunately, you have people that aren't honest, and they go to close and they tell people they're single, and then 2 months later, it's like, where's my money? I was supposed to be paid out from this transaction. My husband closed. How come I didn't get? I was supposed to get 50% of that transaction. What happened?
Okay.
So, I mean, all of those things, those are all potential title claims.
Okay.
All of those. There's a lot I can go into. There's even ID fraud.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's really common with vacant lots. When people have vacant lots and they're free and clear. So people will turn and get fake IDs made and say they're the sellers and sell properties from underneath the true owner, all using fake identification. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that are very prevalent that are normal title claims, forged power of attorneys.
Yeah.
I mean, you name it. There's a reason. There's a reason why you have title insurance.
Right.
We'll just put it that way.
And I think the reason of having title insurance is also just as important as making sure that you're working with an agent that knows what they're doing.
Yes.
Because these are questions that I ask my sellers, like we said, about the marriage. If you have I had a client that we worked with that had a lot that's had it forever, and it became a huge issue because there was flooding that was never disclosed to him, and now it's becoming an issue that we're having to deal with. And so these are things that you really want to make sure that your agent, whoever it is that you're working with, is working with a reputable title company that knows what they're doing and is an experience, because these are issues you do not want to have after you've closed. Yeah. I mean, these are just things we don't want to deal with. So we want to try to make it smooth for everybody, even for us.
Especially for us.
But we really want to make sure our clients are not getting that knock on the door 60 days later, right?
Not a pleasant phone call.
Yeah, not a pleasant phone call.
No.
Do you as an escrow officer have to renew your license regularly like I do?
Yes, we do. We have to renew it. We have to do, just like you, certain amount of credits per year.
Okay.
Certain amount of ethics credits. So just like attorneys, just like real estate agents, we're licensed escrow officers.
Okay.
And in fact, in Texas, and in a lot of states, but in Texas too, only licensed escrow officers can conduct the closing.
Okay.
We're the only ones that can do the closing. We're the only ones that can sign off on the settlement statements, and review the paperwork and actually do the transaction.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So just like me, I just renewed my license. You have to do all those classes.
Yes.
And
it's a good
it's
thing.
a good thing.
It keeps people current.
It does, and the laws change. So like taking legal 1 and 2 is so important because things change every couple of years. So it's good to be updated on it. And I agree.
Contracts change, things change. Lawsuits,
which causes things to change.
Exactly.
Yep. And so, are you a member, or is Old Republic a member of any professional associations?
Yes, the TLTA, which is the Texas Land Title Association, and that's one of the big, obviously the big one here in Texas.
Okay.
And most of the big title companies are.
Okay.
But it's just like anything else. The biggest thing is the license. You want to make sure that, and the reputation. You want to make sure that you're dealing with reputable companies. I hate saying this, but not like Bob's Title. It's like. The thing is, especially since you're paying the same rates anyway.
Exactly.
Why on earth would you be doing that? Why would you use anybody that's not reputable?
Right.
You want to make sure that if you do have, unfortunately, knock on wood, a claim, are they going to be there in 2 years to pay it out?
Exactly.
Do they have the money to pay it out? Do they have the underwriters to deal with it?
Exactly.
So it's just like any other insurance company. You don't want to do discount insurance for your life insurance.
Exactly.
You don't want it for your car.
You don't want it for my house.
It makes no sense to me to use unknowns that would not maybe pay out really well. So
I agree with you 100%. Absolutely. So we're coming to the end of our video. I hope we asked all your questions, but I have the most important question to ask Amber.
Oh boy.
We've known each other for, as I said, for 9 years. So what is one funny thing I don't know about you?
Oh my gosh. Well, how much time have you got?
Should we get a glass of wine?
I know. Well, I'll just say one thing that always just cracks people up because they're like, no way. I'm kind of known for being klutzy. Shocker.
Right.
I actually got electrocuted. When I was a kid at a harvest festival. I know, only me, right?
Like,
seriously.
were you standing next to you? And like, lightning hit you or what?
No, it was like the weirdest. It's like, it was just totally Murphy's Law. So, and this can only happen to people like that are so accident prone. So, and you have to remember this is back in the 70s when the earth was cooling.
No, it was like back in 1990.
Yeah, that's right.
What are you talking about?
So, our family, we're a German family, we always used to sell these, we called them kraut burgers.
Okay.
We had a little kraut burger stand with our church,
Okay.
and we used to sell that and Dr. Pepper and stuff like that. And I was with my friends and all my cousins and stuff waiting for our parents to, while they were working.
Right.
And I was sitting, eating one of the kraut burgers, and it was fall in Denver, so it was pretty windy. And I was sitting on this, it was like we used to have telephone wires, right?
Right.
And back, the utility companies used to just loop the live wires and just stick them to the top, right?
Of course.
So
it's a smart thing to do.
Yeah. So it's windy, and the live wire became unhooked, and I just happened to be holding onto this like bus sign, of course, metal bus sign, right? While I'm drinking my
Dr. Pepper.
And the stupid live wire comes and hits the side, and then, it was like, it was crazy. And the one thing I remember, and it just cracks me up, is that there's this lady with this like beehive haircut,
Right.
like this, and she had these horrible green polyester like jumpsuit on.
Right.
And all I just remember is just her grabbing me and like pulling me off.
Oh my God.
And then I got a candy apple. So.
Well, of course, you've been electrocuted.
I know.
Here's a candy apple.
This is the difference between the 70s and now. Yeah. My parents didn't sue the city for millions of dollars.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
They just told me I was a dummy for sitting by the live wire, which I was. So anyway, just kind of.
Exactly.
That's just one of the many stories.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There's always minis, but I love that part.
I know.
Is we didn't sue people back in the day. Our parents just said, how stupid could you be?
I know.
Who does that?
It serves you right.
It serves you right. So, well, thank you for joining us in our video. And if you have any other additional questions, please put them in the comments below. And if I can't answer them, if they have to do a title, I can't. I'll forward them on to Amber. She can always answer them, and then we can let you know. But thank you, and we look forward to seeing you on our next video. Bye.